You grab the handle, take a deep breath, and push open the heavy door to the interview room. Or maybe it's a restaurant for a high-stakes first date. Your heart is pounding because you know the next few minutes are critical. You've spent hours rehearsing your lines. You have your talking points memorized, your resume facts queued up, and the perfect opening line ready. But the truth is, the outcome of this interaction is largely being decided right now, in the silence before you even open your mouth. We like to think we are purely rational observers, carefully weighing facts and logic. That belief leaves us blind to the silent psychological forces that actually dictate how we judge each other in real time. The second someone sees you, their brain begins building a baseline reality. This relies heavily on the primacy effect, our hardwired tendency to prioritize the very first pieces of information we receive, granting them first dibs on our short-term memory. There is a reason the famous advice attributed to Oscar Wilde says you never get a second chance to make a first impression. If you stumble into the room 5 minutes late, that negative trait anchors your memory. Research shows we spend less time processing new information as a sequence continues, meaning that initial lateness taints every competent thing you say afterward. On the flip side, arriving sharply dressed and flashing a warm, genuine smile immediately triggers the halo effect. When someone evaluates those positive visual cues, they subconsciously assume you possess an inherently good moral character across the board. Within seconds, your brain has established a baseline that disproportionately weights the start of the sequence, creating a skewed reality that persists even as more substantial information begins to arrive. Once the pleasantries are out of the way and the active conversation begins, the data flow splits into 3 distinct channels. There is language, the literal words you use, paralanguage, which is your tone, pitch, and speed, and kinesics, your gestures and body language. This chart visualizes how we derive emotional meaning from those channels based on the research of psychologist Albert Mehrabian. When expressing feelings or attitudes, a mere 7% of the meaning comes from our words. 38% is derived from paralanguage, leaving a massive 55% to be communicated by our facial and bodily expressions. We constantly leak our true attitudes through this dominant 55%. As early as 1872, Charles Darwin observed that our primary emotional expressions, things like fear, anger, or happiness, are completely involuntary. You might offer a polite, civil greeting to someone you strongly dislike, but specific facial muscles will involuntarily tense, your posture will close off, and those micro-expressions will actively betray the pleasant words coming out of your mouth. When what you say clashes with how you physically behave, the brain of your listener automatically trusts the physical signal. It is an evolutionary shortcut that bypasses conscious logic entirely, relying on the steady stream of body language to read your true thoughts. Eventually, the interview or the date ends. You shake hands, part ways, and head home to evaluate how the meeting went. That is when the brain's ego protection software kicks into gear. We judge the interaction through a lens called the actor-observer bias. This is a mechanism that applies highly hypocritical standards to how we evaluate our own actions versus the actions of others. If your date spent the evening looking distracted and checking their phone, you immediately attribute that behavior to their internal disposition. You conclude that they are rude, disinterested, or simply have a bad personality. But if you spent the evening checking your own phone, the story changes. You attribute your behavior to external situational factors. You are waiting on an urgent work email, or you are exhausted by horrible traffic on the way over. As actors, we have the full context for our own behavior, but as observers, we lack that contextual data for others. So our brains default to harsh dispositional judgments to elevate our own standing while bringing them down. This process of maintaining your self-image relies on the self-serving bias, a cognitive habit designed to preserve your sense of worth by taking credit for successes and deflecting failures. If you get a callback for the job, you operate from an internal locus of control. You claim full credit for the success, attributing the outcome to your talent, your rigorous preparation, and your sharp intellect. But if you receive a rejection email, an external locus of control takes over. The failure could not possibly be your fault. Instead, the interviewer was biased, the questions were unfair, or the hiring process was rigged from the start. This logic can reach a point where we refuse to accept that misfortune is random. To keep the world feeling predictable and safe, we adopt the just world hypothesis, the belief that people inherently get exactly what they deserve. We want to believe that good things happen to good people, and bad things happen to bad people. To maintain that comforting illusion of a controllable world, the human brain would often rather blame an innocent victim for their own misfortune than accept that reality is chaotic and unfair. Left unchecked, these phenomena have serious real-world stakes. Over-relying on snap nonverbal judgments and indulging in self-serving biases destroys psychological safety in the workplace, breeds resentment, and constantly fuels imposter syndrome. To override the system, you have to start by getting your own signals straight. Consciously align your kinesics, your paralanguage, and your spoken words, so you stop sending mixed messages to the people around you. Next, force yourself to flip the actor-observer bias. When a coworker makes a mistake or seems irritable, actively assume they are dealing with a difficult situation or having a bad day, rather than assuming they possess a deeply flawed personality. Finally, cultivate the self-awareness required to look at your own failures accurately. You have to be able to admit where you fell short without letting those mistakes destroy your core sense of self-worth. We can never completely stop our brains from making split-second, ego-driven judgments. But by recognizing this invisible psychological operating system, you can step in and ensure it no longer controls the conversation.